So a couple of days ago, Russian propagandists were on air talking about how they need to infiltrate the Democrat Party so that they can do kind of the same things that they were doing to the Republicans, and in order to monkey with the Americans even more. So here's a Russian MP, a Russian member of parliament, Andrei Lugyov, who has been I don't care if I mispronounced it, has been publicly talking about the kinds of subversive tactics that Russia should use against the United States and Europe. Remember, this would be like a congressman saying, hey, we ought to go do this to Russia. Just listen to what he has to say. Lugov is a former KGB officer and a murderer. In 2006, he poisoned Alexander Lukavenko in London with radioactive plutonium-210. Lukavenko was a former Russian security officer who defected to the UK after exposing corruption and crimes with Russia's intelligence service. So that's some of the backdrop. Let's listen to what he has to say. It's pretty stunning. Lugovi says, we need to work more closely with all those contradictions that they have, meaning that the contradictions within American society. Look, we're at each other's throats to some degree if you look in, like, particularly at social media. Now, when you walk around and just go to the supermarket or whatever else, everybody's chill. But when you look on the news, like, it's just been drummed up. Everybody's at each other, and it's kind of bad, right? So he's trying to work this. And this is what was in the Mueller report as well. If you go back to the Mueller report that was investigating Trump and the connection between Trump and Russia, what you'll find is that Russia wasn't like trying to get Trump elected so much as trying to stir the pot, and they have been stirring the pot. And they would work with a Black Lives Matter type of group, and they would also work with a white supremacy type group, and they would try to fuel the conflict between the two groups. Apparently in Europe, they've been doing the same thing, trying to attack Jewish temples and simultaneously attack Islamic worship centers as well, Islamic mosques, and trying to like stir the pot between whether it's racial, whether it's religious, whatever they can do to stir the pot. That's what they're trying to do. He says we have to infiltrate people there, where into their internal life. We should work with journalists, we should work with politicians, and we should buy them. Again, this is how it works in Russia. They buy the politicians. There's massive corruption. So he's thinking the same thing. We should work with those politicians and buy them. It works on social media. There have been multiple documented episodes where social media personalities have been, bought off with Russian influence or to spout Russian propaganda points, effective Russian influence with money. So, okay, same kind of thing. And Sabika says we should buy them. Sabika says infiltrate people into the Democratic Party. That is my question. So that's okay. So it's pretty well known that there are Republicans. So let me phrase this carefully. I'm not sure the degree to which Republican politicians are influenced directly by Russia, but certainly there are influencers influencing the Republican politicians to say Russian talking points. There's no doubt about that. The degree to which any are influenced directly or at least indirectly, Republicans are. So he's saying we ought to be doing this to Democrats as well. Infiltrate people into the Democratic Party? That is my question. And the answer is we have to persuade them. Now, how do they persuade them? Do they do that by bribery, or do they do that something else? The reason that I'm keying in on this is because I'm a conservative. On the Republican side, I hear people say things, and I'm a Reagan conservative. I'm all in for Ukraine, and I'm supportive of Ukraine because it just makes sense. But then I hear things like other Republicans saying things like that. Like, wait, I asked myself, what would Ronald Reagan do when this first broke? And it was very clear. It was a very obvious, well, support Ukraine, an authoritarian state, and we're trying to trample a democracy. Of course, that's what we should be doing. But when you hear Republican populist influencers talking about it, and that gets into the ecosystem in their social media, and it's pretty pervasive. I'm a minority within my own party now, and it's bizarre. So he wants to do the same thing over to the Democrats, and he'll explain exactly how and why. So he says we have to persuade them. And then she goes on and says, infiltrate people into the Democratic Party? That's my question. In particular, yes. So they could do the same thing to the Democrats. Why would they want to do the same thing to the Democrats? Well, because the Democrats are the ones that have been holding the line, particularly on Ukraine. Sabika, yes, I'm deeply convinced in that. When we talk about aggressive soft power, they use against us. And they talking about the Democrats. I mean, if there's a party that is most hostile to Russia, it's a Democratic Party. Now, it used to be that the Republicans were most hostile to Russia, and apparently some of the subversion means have worked. Before Donald Trump came to power in 2016, and really crossed at about 2016, and if you asked your average Republican who's the greatest threat in the world, they probably would have said Russia. After 2016, the Democrats said that, and the Republicans wouldn't say that. It's just a weird thing to watch. I mean, if there's a party that's most hostile to Russia, it's a Democratic Party. But Republicans are about as hostile to Russia. It will be very difficult to find supporters of our country there. She's not wrong. Republicans have kind of come back, and they tend to not necessarily support Ukraine, but they still have a reflexive hostility toward Russia and Putin particularly. I'm not talking about supporters. I think we should keep coddling them against each. We should use their contradictions to throw them into shutdown, not only economically, but also politically. So use their contradictions, get them to be at odds with each other, Republicans hating Democrats and Democrats hating Republicans. This is why my calls for civility is actually the answer to stop what he's trying to talk about. There's no need to be shy about that, he says. They often accuse us of interfering in their elections. We say we don't interfere, and we really don't interfere. But we should interfere. This is a Russian member of parliament talking, I'll remind you. We are developing our propaganda activity in Europe and America in positive sense of the word. Positive sense of the word of developing your propaganda activity? It's bizarre. And we should reinforce it even more. We see the results. I gave you the examples, and we do it absolutely rightfully. All the same is about Europe. Yeah, they're messing with Europe elections too. Look at Georgia. Look at Moldova. Look at the Czech Republic. They're doing it there in a big way. Still, they have contradictions, and we should anyway make use of them. We should be very attentive to the provocations that they make. They want provocations. Let us prepare something for them. Something interesting, he says, so that they would stop making statements about provocations and understand deep inside that we sent them some good signal. Because all the red lines we've drawn, all those red lines, they've crossed long ago. And we haven't responded yet in any loud way to crossing of any red line. Of course, maybe this is once again shows that we're decent and well-mannered people. Well, that sounds like decent and well-mannered people would want to do that. Would cause all the contradictions to be at odds with each other, so they inflame hatred within the United States. Red lines indeed. Crush them all there, once and for all, he concludes. Okay, crush them all there, once and for all. This is a Russian member of parliament talking about what he wants to do to the United States and then to Europe as well. Tell me what you thought about what you saw. I mean, I just laid it out for you. I'm not making stuff up. You saw it with your own eyes. Put it in the comments below. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.